Rachel could draw a deep breath as she slipped out of bed and dressed. But she had awakened to the strange, unsettled sense that something was different. Something was menacing. She went down to the kitchen to oversee Mrs. O'Reilly's breakfast preparations and review the plans for Matthew's birthday supper that evening. Then out to the garden to pick an armful of dewy white roses and rosemary sprigs and the last few pink oleander blooms for the bowl on the table in the morning room. But all the while, she couldn't shake the feeling of apprehension. And even as she arranged the flowers in a crystal bowl, wondering once again why white roses were supposed to signify sadness when the rich scent of their silvery petals gave her so much pleasure, she was uneasy. Perhaps it was Angela's worrisome illness, or the rising north wind, unusual for September, that made a peculiar whistling in the eaves, or the pounding of the surf that seemed much louder now than when she'd gotten up, and the tremors of the wooden floor under her feet. Rachel had occasionally felt the floor trembling during Gulf storms, although it had never been quite so pronounced as now. The Blackwood house was located on Kew Avenue, just off Bath Avenue, only 3 blocks from the white sand beach. The highest ground in the island city, on Broadway, rose only 8.7 feet above the Gulf. And some, perhaps remembering that Cabeza de Vaca had named the island Malado, misfortune, had cautioned that a strong storm would flood the entire city. A seawall had been proposed as early as 1874, and several times since, but it was considered to be too expensive and unnecessary. Isaac Klein, a noted meteorologist and chief of the Weather Bureau's Texas section and the Blackwoods' neighbor on Kew Avenue, had written in the news that it was simply an absurd delusion to believe that Galveston could be seriously damaged by a tropical storm. The city was protected by the general laws of the motion of the atmosphere. Nevertheless, many prudent Galvestonians built their houses on pilings, and Rachel's husband, Augustus, was one of these. He had ordered his house to be constructed atop wooden piers, driven deep into the island's sandy soil, ensuring that it would stand well above the highest of storm tides, locally called overflows. As he explained to Rachel, it was the piers, standing 8 feet above the surface, which transmitted the shudder of the waves against the beach to the floors of the house. The trembling, he said with a confident smile, was in fact a token of the strength and security of its anchorage to the earth. Indeed, it was not just a secure and solid house, but a splendid house, as befitted a man of Mr. Blackwood's rank among Galveston's men of finance. It was a large 3-story towered and turreted Victorian, with a drawing room where Rachel served tea to the ladies who called every afternoon, and a library filled with Augustus's fine collection of books, and a music room fitted out with a Steinway grand piano. There was a magnificent oak staircase, fireplaces with gleaming marble mantels, and glorious stained-glass windows in the dining and drawing rooms, commissioned from the Tiffany Glass and Decorating Company. The opulent furnishings and draperies, all in exquisite taste, had been brought from as far away as Paris and New York. Painted a sober brown with red trim, this fine house was set back from the street behind a wrought iron fence, a border of oleanders and hollies, and a row of date palms, which in the late summer produced an abundance of fruit. The steps up to its wide front gallery were guarded by twin stone lions, each head turned to gaze thoughtfully at the other. The heavy bronze knocker on the oak front door wore the enigmatic face of Neptune, the god of the deep. And the steep slate roof was crowned with a wooden-railed widow's walk that offered a panoramic view of the island paradise, and the vast blue-green gulf stretching to the eastern horizon. But while Mr. Blackwood prized his house for its solidity, its splendor, the beauty of its furnishings, and the view from its roof, Rachel prized it for far more. It was the home of her heart. It held all that was dear to her: Augustus and her children, stalwart Matthew, 10 years old on this very day, sweet in-between Ida, the 5-year-old mischievous twins, Peter and Paul, and dear